Introduction. A journey to unlock Christianity's most controversial relics. For more than 2,000 years, Christianity has not only left behind biblical texts, doctrines, religious orders, and communities of believers scattered across the world, but also a vast treasury of relics. These relics, from the Shroud of Turin, the Crown of Thorns, the crucifixion nails, to the Spear of Longinus or the empty tomb, have become the focal point of endless debates among archaeologists, historians, theologians, and popular culture. What makes them so fascinating is this: they sit on the boundary between science and faith. Some relics have been shown to date precisely to the time of Jesus. Some have appeared continuously in historical records for over 1,000 years. And some still cannot be fully explained by modern physics, chemistry, or technology. Unlike myths or folk legends, Christian relics are often tied to real historical events. The Roman Empire's occupation of Judea politically charged trials wars between Byzantium and Persia, the Crusades, and the rise and fall of European dynasties. Each relic is a slice of history, and at the same time a piece of humanity's collective religious memory. Most important of all, many relics show very clear historical continuity, meaning people know where they were kept, how they moved, and who protected them over the centuries. This continuity greatly increases their archaeological credibility, a crucial factor when studying religious artifacts. This article will take you through 10 of the most mysterious, most debated, and most archaeologically significant relics. We will analyze them based on what archaeology has discovered, what science has tested, what history has recorded, and what religious tradition has preserved. This is not a purely devotional piece, but a blend of serious research and spiritual depth, helping us understand why these relics continue to captivate the world so powerfully. The empty tomb. The beginning of faith, not the end of a story. The empty tomb is the central relic of Christianity. Without the resurrection, Christianity would never have come into existence. Therefore, the tomb where the body of Jesus was laid on Good Friday and found empty on Sunday morning has become one of the most intensely studied archaeological sites. According to the Gospels, Jesus was placed in a new tomb belonging to Joseph of Arimathea. This is a highly noteworthy detail. Ancient writers would never attach such an important element to a real known person unless they were certain the community of that time could verify it. And indeed, non-biblical Jewish documents also mention Joseph of Arimathea as a real historical figure, a member of the Sanhedrin. Modern archaeology confirms that the site of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre corresponds exactly to a typical first-century Jewish cemetery. Rock-cut Kokim tombs, traces of an ancient quarry, and the geological strata all confirm that the area once served as an extramural burial ground outside Jerusalem's city walls. Research in 2016, when the tomb slab was opened for restoration, discovered a layer of mortar dating to the 4th century, precisely the time when Emperor Constantine built the first church on this spot. Most significant, the lowest rock layer had never been disturbed, meaning the actual location of the tomb has been preserved intact for nearly 2,000 years. For science, the empty tomb is a highly credible archaeological site. For believers, it is the confirmation of the promise of the resurrection. And for humanity, it is one of history's greatest mysteries. His body once lay here, but now it is no longer there. The Shroud of Turin, the greatest mystery between faith and science. The Shroud of Turin is arguably the most controversial relic in all of Christianity. It is both a religious artifact and, in the words of European scientists, a physical phenomenon whose mechanism remains unidentified. The cloth is 4.4 meters long, 1.1 meters wide, made of herringbone woven linen. On its surface is the faint negative image of a man who has been executed. Astonishingly, the image is not painted, not burned in bears, no pigment, and appears only on the outermost fibers of the threads. When photographed in negative in 1898, the image suddenly became strikingly clear, revealing marks from scourging around 120 wounds, nail wounds in the wrists, a spear wound in the side, blood of type AB, traces of a crown of thorns encircling the entire head. The 1988 carbon-14 test initially concluded that the shroud was from the Middle Ages, but that result was later challenged because the samples were taken from a patch in a burned and repaired area. More recent studies suggest a date somewhere between 300 BC and 400 AD, well within the time frame of Jesus. Some researchers believe the image was formed by an intense burst of radiation at the moment of resurrection. Although this hypothesis cannot be proven, no one has yet been able to reproduce a similar image on linen without damaging the fabric. The crucifixion nails hard. Evidence of Roman execution methods. In archaeology, one of the most important pieces of evidence for crucifixion is the skeleton of Yehohanan, discovered in 1968 near Jerusalem. A nail 11.5 centimeter long was found driven through the heel bone and bent at the tip due to hitting a wooden knot behind, exactly consistent with Roman practice. This discovery disproves the popular image of nails driven through the palms, since the bones in the hand cannot support body weight. Crucifixion nails of that era were 12 to 18 centimeters long, made of roughly forged iron and produced locally. Many churches claim to possess true crucifixion nails, but archaeologists recognize only a few, as possibly dating back to the 1st century. However, for Christians, the significance does not lie in which nail is authentic, but in what the nails represent. They are symbols of the suffering and self-giving of Christ. The crown of thorns, a mark of humiliation turned into a sign of glory. Among all the images of the Passion, the crown of thorns is both one of the most concrete relics and one of the most evocative. It was not an instrument of execution, but an instrument of mockery. When the Roman soldiers pressed it onto Jesus' head, they were not only causing pain, but turning him into a spectacle. Yet that very symbol of derision became one of Christianity's holiest emblems. According to botany and archaeology, the plant that best fits the biblical description is Ziziphus spina Christi, long, rigid razor-sharp thorns common in Judea. When woven into a cap, these thorns can pierce the scalp and cause severe bleeding, perfectly matching the wound pattern on the Shroud of Turin, which suggests the crown was not a simple ring, but likely a cap covering the whole head. The historical journey of the crown of thorns is also unusually clear. Tradition holds that it was kept in Jerusalem until the 7th century, then moved to Constantinople when the Persians invaded. Later, Emperor Baldwin II, deeply in debt, was forced to sell some relics, and King Louis X of France, St. Louis, purchased the crown, bringing it to Paris in 1239. From then on, it was placed in Sainte-Chapelle, a chapel built specifically as a reliquary. Despite many upheavals, including the devastating fire at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris in 2019, the crown has been preserved. The thorns themselves are no longer there. They were widely distributed as secondary relics in the Middle Ages, but the woven rush circlet still exists and has a continuous documented history stretching back over 1,000 years. This makes it one of the historically most credible relics, even if science cannot absolutely confirm its identity. Theologically, the crown of thorns embodies Christianity's paradox. What was meant for mockery becomes the symbol of divine kingship. It reminds humanity that some forms of glory can only be reached by passing through humiliation, and that in every human suffering there remains a ray of transforming light. The Holy Chalice, the relic of the Last Supper. Among the list of relics, the Holy Chalice is one of the most symbolically rich. It is believed to be the cup Jesus used at the Last Supper, where he instituted the Eucharist and said, "This is my blood, the blood of the covenant."
tells the story.
Unlike medieval legends of the Holy Grail steeped in European myth and fantasy, archaeologists focus on artifacts whose dating fits the 1st century and whose historical tradition is coherent. Today, the relic most highly regarded is the Holy Chalice of Valencia in Spain. 1. Archaeological features of the Valencia Chalice. The chalice preserved in Valencia has a cup portion made of red agate onyx, likely of Middle Eastern origin, dated roughly between 100 BC and 50 AD, with its stem and handles added in the Middle Ages. Cups carved from agate were common in Jewish and Greco-Roman culture in the 1st century, used during festive or religious meals. This makes it entirely plausible that such a cup could have been used at the Last Supper. 2. A continuously documented journey. From the 4th century, the chalice is mentioned in Rome. From there, it was reportedly used by popes in special liturgies, transferred to Spain during times of Christian persecution, hidden in monasteries in the Pyrenees, and finally brought to Valencia Cathedral in the 15th century. Remarkably, aside from the tomb and the Turin shroud, no other relic has such a clear and continuous line of transmission. 3. Theological meaning. The Holy Chalice is not just a drinking vessel. It symbolizes the new covenant between God and humanity, the self-offering of Christ, the link between the Last Supper and the Passion. What history cannot prove with absolute certainty, faith sees as an open door to a deeper communion between past and present. The spear of Longinus, the weapon that pierced the Savior's side. The spear thrust into Jesus' side is a detail mentioned by the Gospels as the final confirmation of his death. The Roman soldiers had to make sure he was truly dead before taking the body down, and that thrust is described as releasing blood and water. Tradition names the soldier Longinus, a Roman centurion. After the event, he is said to have converted and eventually became a martyr in both Eastern and Western Christian traditions. 1. Archaeological characteristics of a Roman spear. A Roman spear of the 1st century generally had an iron blade in the shape of a leaf, about 15-25 centi long, mounted on a wooden shaft about 1.52 meters in length. A thrust into the side at that angle could easily rupture the pericardium or lungs, consistent with John's description of blood and water, a phenomenon modern medicine acknowledges as plausible if fluid has built up around the heart. 2. The most famous spears of Longinus. There are 3 main claimants: the Vienna lance in the Hofburg Palace, Austria, the Vatican lance, the Antioch lance discovered by Crusaders in the 11th century. The Vienna spear is the most famous, once used by Charlemagne and later German emperors as a symbol of imperial power. However, metal analysis suggests the blade dates to a later period, likely the Middle Ages. The Vatican spear is rarely displayed, but is sometimes considered historically closer to ancient Jerusalem. Even so, science cannot yet provide a definitive answer. Again, the crucial point is not which spear is genuine, but that the spear as an instrument and act was real and a standard method of Roman execution. 3. Theological meaning. The spear thrust symbolizes the final confirmation that Christ truly died, the outpouring of grace, blood, and water, the opening of the new covenant. The spear of Longinus reminds the faithful that even humanity's most brutal acts can become the very place where God opens the way to salvation. The true cross, the greatest symbol of Christianity. The cross is Christianity's most recognizable symbol, but the notion of the true cross, the very wood on which Jesus was crucified, has an especially complex historical and archaeological story. According to tradition, Saint Helena, mother of Emperor Constantine, traveled to Jerusalem in the 4th century to seek the relics of the Passion. There she is said to have found 3 crosses, and by means of tests recorded in ancient texts, determined which one belonged to Christ. Even if that story bears hagiographical elements, one fact remains undeniable: from the 4th century onward, fragments of the cross were preserved in major churches throughout the empire, especially in Jerusalem, Constantinople, and Rome. These wood samples have been identified archaeologically as dating to the 1st century and made from Pinus halepensis, a type of pine common in Judea. Later skeptics argued there were too many pieces of the true cross in medieval Europe. Modern archaeology, however, counters that most of those were secondary relics. Objects touched to the original cross, not actual fragments of it. When these are filtered out, the number of plausible wood fragments is actually very small, and those few have serious documentation. The key is not the size of the wood splinter, but its continuous historical chain. The fragments of the cross are kept in precious reliquaries, cataloged in Byzantine and Latin imperial records, and revered by emperors as sacred symbols of Christian authority. In theology, the cross is the symbol of self-giving love, a total reversal of worldly power. The very instrument of cruelty becomes the sign of salvation. The existence of the wooden relics is simply a tangible witness to an event that shaped human history. The cross, whether as a small piece of wood or a spiritual imprint, remains the pillar of Christian civilization, the place where death is transformed into hope. The Sudarium of Oviedo, the face cloth that witnesses to death. If the Shroud of Turin is the relic marked by the resurrection, the Sudarium of Oviedo is the relic associated with Jesus' death. It is a small cloth about 84 to 53 cm used to cover his face immediately after death before the body was removed and washed. This cloth bears no facial image, only blood stains, bodily fluids, and soak patterns. Astonishingly, the blood stains on the Oviedo cloth match blood type AB, the same as on the Shroud of Turin. When the two cloths are digitally superimposed in 3D analysis, the positions of the stains correspond exactly to the same nose and mouth area, indicating they once touched the same face. What greatly strengthens the Sudarium's archaeological value is its continuous documentary history, from the 7th century when it was taken from Jerusalem to avoid Persian invasion. It was safeguarded in North Africa, then in Toledo, Spain, and finally in Oviedo, where it has been kept in a wooden chest since 840. Pollen analysis indicates the cloth was once present in Judea, North Africa, Toledo, and Oviedo, exactly matching the recorded journey. Remarkably, the Sudarium does not contradict the shroud. Rather, the two support one another, since a face cloth would normally be removed before the body was wrapped in a long burial shroud. Theologically, the Sudarium highlights a crucial truth. Jesus truly died. This was not a coma or staged death. The blood and water pattern aligns with medical descriptions of a stopped heart and fluid buildup in the lungs after torture and crucifixion. It is a silent yet powerful witness to the historical reality of the Passion. If the Shroud of Turin is evidence of new life, the Sudarium is evidence of that sobering instant when humanity stood before the death of God-made man. The Ark of the Covenant, the greatest relic of Judaism and Christianity. Among all the relics humanity has ever sought, none surpasses the Ark of the Covenant in historical influence and religious depth. It was a gold-covered wooden chest containing the 2 stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, Aaron's staff, and a jar of manna from the desert. According to the Hebrew Bible, the ark symbolized the very presence of God. It was carried through the wilderness, caused the waters of the Jordan to part, brought down the walls of Jericho, and rested in the Holy of Holies of Solomon's temple. So what happened to it when Babylon destroyed the temple in 587 BC? The ark vanished from history. Since then, 3 main theories have emerged. 1. The ark was hidden in tunnels under Mount Moriah. Many scholars believe the priests hid the ark in caverns beneath the Temple Mount before the Babylonian attack. However, this area is now under Islamic authority, making archaeological excavation impossible. 2. The ark was taken to Egypt, then to Ethiopia. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum, Ethiopia claims to house the true ark, but no one except a single guardian is allowed to see it. Debate over this claim has continued for centuries. 3. The ark was destroyed by the Babylonians. This is the most realistic and bleakest hypothesis, implying that the holiest of relics, was completely annihilated.
They simply remain.
What matters is that the Ark is not simply a physical relic.
Waiting to be noticed.
It is the foundational symbol of the covenant between God and His people. In Christian theology, Jesus Himself is the new Ark, the bearer of the eternal covenant, the legacy of the relics and their timeless meaning. As we reach the end of this journey through 12 of Christianity's most famous relics from the empty tomb, the Shroud of Turin, the Crown of Thorns, the Holy Chalice, the Spear of Longinus, the Sudarium of Oviedo to the true cross, and the Crusader relics, one thing becomes clearer than ever. Relics are not just ancient objects. They are windows into that moment where history and the sacred intersect. Each relic is a line connecting past to present. They allow humanity to glimpse, however indirectly, a story that changed the course of world history. But more importantly, they confront the human heart with a question: what will we do with these truths? How will we live when faced with these traces of love, suffering, and hope? 1. Relics, between science and faith. One of the most fascinating aspects of relics is that they belong wholly neither to science nor to faith. They stand at that strange crossroads where science examines structure, age, and material, while faith perceives meaning. The Shroud of Turin continues to challenge every method of analysis. The Sudarium of Oviedo confirms blood patterns in a way science can verify. The Crown of Thorns has an unbroken history of more than a millennium. The Holy Chalice of Valencia fits perfectly within the time frame of Jesus. The Spear of Longinus highlights the medical accuracy of the Gospels. Science cannot prove religion, yet science also cannot erase the historical traces linked to the life of one man who transformed human civilization. 2. Relics as humanity's spiritual treasures. Not only Christianity, but world history itself sees relics as treasures. They spark scientific research, preserve ancient heritage, enhance the cultural value of civilizations, and safeguard the collective memory of humankind. A relic is not simply a piece of wood or a strip of cloth. It is the memory of the world, a reminder that there was a moment when humanity witnessed a love so strong it was willing to embrace the cross. 3. What relics say to the modern person? Today we live in an age of chaos where truth is distorted, values are inverted, and the pace of life makes us forget meaning. Relics remind us that some things cannot be swallowed by time. Compassion, like Veronica offering her veil. Fidelity, like the apostles after the resurrection. Sacrifice, like the one who was crucified. And hope, like the empty tomb. Whether or not relics can be verified by the scientific standards of 2025, what matters is that they lead us back to the core story. The story of unconditional love. 4. Relics. Proof that history cannot erase truth. 2,000 years have passed. The Roman Empire has fallen. Jerusalem has been destroyed multiple times. European dynasties have come and gone. Yet the tomb remains empty. The cloths remain. The mark of the thorns endures. The Holy Chalice is still kept, and that faith continues to spread. This tells us that no matter how much people change history, still preserves what belongs to the truth. Epilogue. Looking back over, we have passed through the place where the Lord was laid, the empty tomb. The cloths that covered him, Sudarium and Shroud of Turin, the sign of mockery. He wore the crown of thorns, the instrument of his execution, the nails and the cross. The cup of his final meal, the Holy Chalice. The weapon that confirmed his death, the spear. And the heritage preserved by later generations through the Crusades. These relics remain like fragments of a story that transcends time, a story of suffering, of sacrifice, of humanity, and of a love stronger than death. In the end, what every relic wants to say to us is not, am I authentic, but rather, how will you live in the face of a love that gave its life for you? That is the greatest legacy any relic can leave behind. Darkness on set. Unsolved mysteries from the Passion of the Christ, flickering torchlight. The cold breath of an artificial Jerusalem night. A man in a blood-soaked robe collapses onto dusty ground while a silent crew stands around him. Everyone knows this is just a scene, just a shot in a film,
He promised you safety,
just a work of art.
yet he let you alone in the dark.
And yet,
How can you still
something
believe
seems to
him?
step beyond the boundaries of cinema. Jim Caviezel, the actor who played Jesus, once said a line that sent a chill down the spine of the entire
The
crew.
character was meant
In
as
certain
simple
moments,
evil,
I no longer knew
yet in
whether
the
I was
final
acting
cut, he became
or actually
disturbingly
experiencing
lifelike.
something real. The Passion of the Christ is not just a film reenacting the Passion. It became a journey that went beyond cinema, where strange phenomena, coincidental shots that perfectly matched religious symbolism and inexplicable incidents happened again and again. This article will take you through those 6 greatest mysteries, not as mere rumors, but as a blend of film analysis, theology, psychology, and culture, so we can understand why one film has made millions believe it is more than just a movie. The Eyes of Satan. A chilling shot in the European night, the scene. A low-tilted angle. Jesus kneels in the Garden of Gethsemane. Sweat like blood drips from his brow. And in the darkness behind him, a shadowy figure steps forward.
He is still alive.
Ghostly pale skin, deep hollow eyes, genderless and eerie. Satan whispers, "No one can bear the sins of the whole world." It is one of the most terrifying scenes in the history of religious cinema. But the real mystery lies behind the camera. The character of Satan is played by actress Rosalinda Celentano, a woman but made up to appear androgynous.
All right, so what now? We're completely
When
stumped.
filming, Mel Gibson only intended Satan to pass by briefly, like a hallucination.
Under one whispered
However, when the footage was reviewed in post-production, the editing and visual team noticed Satan's eyes reflected light in the opposite direction of normal. The eyelids twitched at a rhythm completely different from the actress's natural movements. When the face was zoomed in, it seemed to show a double-layer morph effect, and in a few frames there were details on the face that did not look human. There was no CGI, no digital manipulation, no special effects added. So what created that horrifying expression? Film critics have proposed 3 main theories. 1. Deliberate uncanny makeup design. Gibson once said he wanted Satan to look human, but never quite human. This kind of design taps into a neurological response called the uncanny valley, where viewers feel subconsciously disturbed by something almost, but not truly, human. 2. Natural flicker of live fire lighting. Some scenes were shot with torch flames and artificial moonlight, creating unusual reflections and shadows that distorted facial expressions. 3. A random moment that perfectly fits religious symbolism. The strange thing is this: every single scene where Satan appears carries the theme of the fracture of humanity. And all these unsettling details unintentionally line up 100% with the biblical symbolism of evil. Soft, yet empty. Beautiful, yet soulless. Present, yet not belonging to this world. Sometimes cinema creates moments that go beyond the director's intentions. And the Satan scene in The Passion is one of those moments. The whisper on the cross, a sound that belongs to no microphone. The scene wind lashes the hill of Golgotha. The crowd screams and sobs. Jesus is about to breathe his last. The camera slowly pushes in, and in the moment he opens his mouth, Jim Caviezel utters, "Father." But what stunned the crew was not the line itself. It was the strange sound that accompanied it. In audio post-production, the sound engineer discovered a low, constant sub-frequency running through the line. Its vibration did not match human vocal cords, and it did not match wind noise machinery or any known sound source on set. Composer John Debney, who wrote the film's score, said that particular sound felt like a distant rumble of something ancient. The technicians filtered the tracks, analyzed the waveform, checked every microphone, replayed the whole scene, but they couldn't identify where it came from. Was it just the wind? Possibly. But why did it only appear during the word Father and not in other moments when the wind was even stronger? Some religious commentators saw this as a small theological echo, a moment when the body of Christ is so exhausted that his final cry is no longer the fragile voice of a man, but something far deeper. In art, the inexplicable often has the strongest impact. And that
Stay with
whisper,
that look of suffering. We're
whether
about to roll,
accidental
so hold
or
it right there.
mysterious, has made countless viewers feel as if the sky itself was trembling. The lightning and the sky. A real-time incident, never written in the script. This is the most famous mystery of the film. The scene Jesus breathes his last.
Medic.
The camera tilts up toward the sky. Darkness gathers. Thunder roars. Lightning slashes across the heavens. That is the scene in the movie. But now, hold tight, because what happened next was 100% real. As Caviezel hung on the cross, the sky, previously clear, suddenly grew dark with storm clouds in just a few minutes. Before the crew could clear the set, boom, a thunderous explosion. A bolt of lightning struck the top of the hill, right where the cross had just stood. Caviezel recalls, "I heard the blast and then felt everything shake under my feet.
It's remarkable.
No one died.
If this
No one was seriously injured.
is mere psychology,
No major equipment was destroyed despite the strike being nearly direct. The truly strange part, the lightning hit at the exact time when they had just finished filming the final crucifixion scene. And stranger still, it mirrored exactly what the scene itself was portraying.
diachronistic view of the
Coincidence?
the Hierophant's plea.
The crew saw it as extremely unlikely. It was a dry location. No storm forecast had been issued. There had been no prior signs of lightning that day. From a biblical standpoint, lightning often appears when God speaks, a sacred event takes place, or a covenant is revealed. Some religious commentators believe nature was simply reenacting the scripture.
No overdub.
Whether you believe that or not, this event remains one of the most inexplicable things ever documented on a Hollywood set. The demons smile.
Than what we heard live.
The terrifying shot amid the howling crowd. The scene Jesus is being publicly scourged in the courtyard. Blood splatters everywhere.
Worse than it was.
Roman whips tear into flesh. The crowd's cries blend with the cold clank of soldiers' armor. The camera pans across, then pauses. In the crowd, a woman is holding a child. It would be an ordinary detail, until the audience looks closely at the child's face eyes that look strangely old. A cold, emotionless stare, the corners of the mouth curled into a mocking smile, and a face that doesn't look like a child at all. That is the demon baby. The most controversial image of the film. The mystery.
Oh my God, Michael!
This shot was not in the original script. Mel Gibson initially just wanted a child in the crowd to make the scene feel more realistic. The idea of Satan's child only emerged on set when he saw the little actor stare into the camera with an eerily intense look. He immediately changed his mind. Keep it, slow it down, zoom in. This is not a normal child. The effect's stronger than Gibson himself expected. In the final cut, the baby's face looks almost like that of an old man. The half smile is so unsettling that many viewers reportedly left the theater at that very scene.
It feels essential.
So where is the mystery? Three explanations are often proposed. Natural, uncanny valley effect. When a child's face carries features far too mature for their age, the human brain instinctively reacts with unease. Lighting and framing. The sideways pan, low lighting, and high contrast make the child's eyes appear deeper, the features harsher, creating a demonic look. A chilling match with theological symbolism. In Western Christian tradition, Satan is often depicted as the one who mimics life, creating something that resembles truth yet is always distorted. The child in Satan's arms visually embodies this idea, a twisted version of life, a corrupted reflection of humanity. No script, no planning, no CGI. Just a moment that turned out truer than what the director had imagined. The man playing Jesus gets nailed for real. One of the most painful accidents in film history. It was the day they shot the crucifixion scene. Cold winds cut through the air. The crew was tense. Jim Caviezel was tied to the cross, which lay flat on the ground. Cameras rolled. The Roman soldiers in costume stepped in, placed his hand on the beam. One extra held a real nail, meant only as a visual reference for the shot. And then a sharp crack. The nail slipped and pierced through Caviezel's palm.
I felt
That was not
I
planned,
was not
not a prop,
acting alone.
not a trick. It was
Whether
a real
art
injury.
sometimes chooses
Caviezel
its
clenched his
servants.
teeth. Witnesses
than
say
the
he
other
didn't
way
scream, he didn't curse. He simply looked up to the sky, breathed heavily, and continued acting. Why did the accident happen? For the crucifixion setup, the cross was laid down first, and the actor was placed on it before being lifted upright. Nails were supposed to be fake. But due to strong winds and a moment of mishandling, the real nail shifted and went through his hand. In the final film, some of the blood you see on his hand is real. The filmmakers later admitted the moment when Caviezel was in the most pain was also when his performance was the most authentic. To play Jesus, Caviezel endured a lightning strike, a dislocated shoulder, bruises all over his body, lung issues from cold and damp shooting conditions, his back being hit twice by a real whip due to a misjudged swing, and a nail going through his hand. Caviezel once said, "I didn't step into this role. This role stepped into me." For many, this incident confirmed the sense that playing Jesus was not just a performance, but an artistic vocation that went beyond rational explanation. The Aramaic lines, a language that corrected itself. The scene in one sequence, Jesus recites a prayer in Aramaic, the ancient language spoken in his time. But in post-production, the sound team noticed something strange. Caviezel mispronounced 2 words on set, yet the recorded audio contained the correct form. And when they checked frame by frame, the lip movements matched the correct words perfectly. No one understood what had happened. What actually occurred on set Aramaic was incredibly difficult for the actors. Several lines were spoken imperfectly. In this particular scene, everyone, including the language coaches, witnessed Caviezel mispronounce a phrase. But the audio captured by the microphone did not match the incorrect pronunciation. It matched the precise, grammatically correct Aramaic. There was no AI. No redubbing, no audio replacement, no last-minute edits. 3 theories surfaced. Caviezel self-corrected mid-sentence, but when they inspected the footage, no lip movement corresponded to the wrong version people thought they heard live. Double recording, audio blending impossible. There was only a single audio track for that shot. A correction beyond technique. Some crew members described it as a coincidence of the soul, something that simply aligned more perfectly than mere chance. Is it just a misunderstanding? Perhaps. Cinema is full of strange accidents. But that line, spoken in the language of Jesus himself, being mysteriously corrected, has remained a detail that no one can fully explain. The jerked run of the mother, where acting ends and symbol begins. The scene Mary, the mother of Jesus, sees her son collapse, and she runs. No hesitation, no concern for dignity, no fear. It is one of the most moving moments in the entire film, a mother helpless as her child is beaten, still rushing forward like a little girl trying to protect him. The special thing, this scene is not in the Bible. It wasn't even in the original script.
Do you read me?
Mel Gibson thought of it spontaneously on set, but what he did not expect was this. When they shot at actress Maya Morgenstern, Mary completely broke down. She sobbed for real, shook uncontrollably, with no acting technique, no deliberate preparation. After the take, she said, "I wasn't acting anymore. I was doing what any mother would do." Even stranger, in every take of this scene, the wind suddenly picked up intensely at the exact moment Mary touched Jesus, while the weather, before and after, remained calm. A perfect match with biblical tradition. Though not described in detail in Scripture, Christian tradition has always affirmed Mary was present throughout the Passion, and she stayed close to her son until his final breath. This cinematic moment, seemingly improvised, ended up reflecting with uncanny precision the heart of a mother who shares in her son's suffering. It is one of the most theological scenes that no one actually wrote down, proving that sometimes art becomes truer than the text itself. the superhuman endurance of the actor's psychology or something else. Jim Caviezel, the man who carried a real cross. In many scenes, Caviezel had to carry a 68-kilo wooden cross, not a lightweight prop. By the third take of the uphill sequence, he fell. The cross slammed into his shoulder. A cracking sound was heard. That was his bone. He suffered a dislocated shoulder, heavy bruising, pneumonia from cold and damp condition, raw skin on his back from being struck by the whip, chronic pain throughout the shoot, yet he continued. Mel Gibson recalls, Caviezel didn't scream. He didn't demand a break. He didn't ask for a stand-in. He said, if he could endure it, I will try to endure at least a part of it. This goes beyond dedicated acting. It approaches a state similar to what some Eastern theater traditions call spiritual embodiment, when the actor becomes a vessel for the character. Film scholars refer to this as transcendent acting, when performance turns into lived experience. Caviezel himself summed it up simply, I felt that I was no longer acting alone. No one can verify this on a scientific level. But what happened on set made many crew members feel that this role had gone far beyond the bounds of normal cinema.
Others simply add it to the growing
The face
list
in the
of
smoke.
odd events clustered around the same
A strange image in the most terrifying scene. The scene as soldiers stoke a fire in preparation for the execution, thick smoke rises. The camera pans across, and for a brief moment, a swirl of smoke curls into a shape that looks like the head of a demon. Cinema audiences didn't notice. But when the Blu-ray edition was released, sharp-eyed viewers discovered two eye cavities, a gaping mouth, and a sunken forehead that looked like horns. No one had added that. There was no CGI, no shaped smoke rig. What did the crew say? The special effects technician confirmed the smoke was real. The wind was natural. No devices were used to shape the smoke. Mel Gibson, watching it later, admitted, I never asked for that. But it appeared right when the soldiers were preparing for the execution. How was it interpreted? Three main explanations, pareidolia. Our brains naturally turn random patterns into familiar shapes, like seeing faces in clouds. Random wind and smoke, a completely natural coincidence. Symbolism that's too precise to ignore.
Deepens the sense.
In biblical metaphor, smoke represents concealment, deception, spiritual darkness. So, for a demonic-looking form to appear in smoke right as humanity prepares to crucify the Savior, for many it felt more like a symbol that formed itself than a mere accident. Science can offer explanations, but the symbolic weight is strong enough to feel like something more. The day's shoot that was Scrap the Child without a shadow. The scene that never made it to the screen. There was once a marketplace scene in Jerusalem with children running around. A young boy dashed across the frame and the camera captured something strange. The boy had no shadow. The crew replayed it. The sunlight was real. No reflectors, no studio lamps, and yet that one child cast no visible shadow. The secondary camera had the same result. What did they do? Mel Gibson decided to delete the entire scene and reshoot the sequence. Not out of superstition, but because everyone who watched it felt a chill, and it didn't fit the film's tone. Several crew members even took the day off afterward because they were too shaken. How to explain it? Three possible explanations. The uneven ground and angle of the shot made the shadow appear outside the visible frame. Another object blocked the shadow. The light balance of the film changed the contrast in a way that erased the shadow. But none of these quite matched what the crew described. The child without a shadow became an unrepeatable mystery. No one could reproduce the phenomenon in later attempts. The crucifixion scene interrupted when sound vanished and all gear failed. One of the scariest days on set, it was the crucifixion, the central climax of the film. Just as the crew prepared to roll, something strange happened. The microphone stopped recording. The audio deck flashed no signal. The anemometer spun wildly. The backup camera froze. No one understood why. The sound technician tapped the device and said, "It's off, but the light is still on." Gibson ordered everything shut down and rebooted. And at that exact moment, the world went silent. Not less noisy, but utterly still. No birds, no wind, no footsteps. A silence so unnatural that everyone felt it. Jim Caviezel, already tied to the cross, whispered, "It's like someone just locked the entire sky."
Hands shook more than usual.
Several crew members standing 20-30 meters away reported the same thing, the sudden disappearance of all ambient sound, as if someone had hit a cosmic mute button. A moment that haunted the entire crew. A few seconds later, the equipment came back to life. Sound returned. The shooting resumed. But that deathly silence, lasting just moments, became something people on set kept talking about for years. Mel Gibson later admitted, "That was the only moment I felt the film no longer belonged to us," as if the silence itself wanted to say something. Of course, science can explain it as a drop in ambient sound, a sudden shift in wind direction that momentarily removed environmental noise from the microphone's pickup field. But why did it happen exactly during the crucifixion, and why did all devices malfunction at the same time? It gave that scene a strange depth, at once cinematic, metaphysical, and sacred. The demon carrying a child, the most shocking symbol in the film. One of the most unforgettable shots in the scene where Jesus is beaten nearly to death. The camera glides sideways and reveals a ghostly, bald figure, a cold, expressionless face, purple lips, cradling a child, but the child has the face of an adult. This image made many viewers shudder. And then the child smiled. In the behind-the-scenes footage during this scene, the child actually laughs, brightly, happily, while being held by the actor playing Satan. No coaching, no direction. No one told him to smile. In interviews, crew members confessed, no one understands why the child smiled through the whole shot. Mel Gibson decided to keep that very take because the inexplicable smile created a level of dread no special effect could match. The terrifying symbolism behind the image, Gibson later explained, Satan holding a child symbolizes love that has been twisted. The child's old face symbolizes evil, disguised as innocence. The smile symbolizes delight in human suffering. This image does not appear in scripture, but in cinematic language, it captures the entire theme of the film in one frame. It contrasts Christ's pure innocence with the warped nature of darkness, and it shows that the spiritual battle unfolds not only on earth, but in unseen dimensions. The lightning strike on the cross after filming, not an effect. 100% real. After Caviezel finished the final crucifixion scene, the sky, which had been bright, clouded over within minutes. The crew hadn't yet taken down the cross when crash, a deafening explosion. A bolt of lightning struck the top of the hill, at the exact spot where the cross was still standing. Caviezel recalls, "I heard the blast, then felt everything under me shaking. No one was hurt, but everyone froze." Coincidence or something more? That lightning bolt came at the exact moment the final crucifixion shot was completed, location where the cross had just been erected, and immediately after the scene of Jesus' death. Yes, science can say, clouds moved in ions, built up lightning happened, all normal. But the cinematic coincidence is so uncanny that many believe nature answered the scene. Whatever your perspective, that instant became one of the mythic fragments in the legend of the Passion of the Christ's production.
The cameras have captured their
Why these phenomena are hard to dismiss as mere coincidence.
has also been imprinted on them.
They happen at the right scenes, at the right moments. Not in random, unimportant shots, but in scenes of falling, scenes of fear, the crucifixion, Satan's appearances, the final destiny of Jesus. If they were pure coincidence, why are they clustered around the emotional and theological peaks of the film too? They occur repeatedly throughout the entire shoot, not once, not twice. But the lead actor is injured again and again, yet keeps going. Sound vanishes, then returns. Satan's child provokes visceral fear. Lightning strikes at the final moment. It is rare for a single film to accumulate such a dense cluster of anomalies. 3. All of them amplify the film's emotional power to a legendary level. These events collectively gave the film profound symbolism, palpable spiritual weight, a sense that it transcends conventional cinema. Not just audiences, but many scholars and directors have described the Passion of the Christ as a film haunted in a sacred way. Conclusion: when cinema touches the sacred, the Passion of the Christ is not just a movie. It is a ritual, a symbol, a spiritual experiment conducted through the lens of cinema. The mysteries behind the scenes are not meant to prove miracles. They exist to remind us that there are moments in art that escape human control. There are stories that touch suffering and redemption at their deepest level. And there are images where the camera is merely a witness. If cinema is light, then this film is where light descends into the deepest darkness, and that darkness, however violent, cannot swallow it whole. The Passion of the Christ is not simply about the death of one man. It tells of pain, faithfulness, evil, sacrifice, and a love stronger than anything the human mind can grasp. And it is precisely the mysteries behind the camera. From the eerie smile of a child to the final lightning strike that have turned this film into a living legend. A work where cinema, art, and spirituality intertwine, leaving an imprint on human memory that refuses to fade. The awakening journey when the Holy Land calls Jonathan Roumie by name. When an actor realizes he is not just playing a role. There are roles that make an actor famous. There are roles that change their career. And there are roles that change the very substance of their soul. For Jonathan Roumie, the role of Jesus in The Chosen is not the first kind. It belongs to the third kind, the rarest, the most dangerous, and the most sacred. He didn't come to this role by some calculated career move, but with the feeling of being led by an invisible hand. In many interviews, Jonathan has shared, "I didn't go looking for the role of Jesus. The role of Jesus found me."
It feels less like he is
And it was precisely that mysterious calling that led him back to the Holy Land, where the story began, where every grain of sand, every gust of wind, every stone slab carries the memory of the man he is portraying. For many actors, visiting the real location is just research for their character. But for Jonathan, this trip was not acting technique. It was an inner journey, a pilgrimage, a meeting with the very soul of the role. The first steps. When the air of Jerusalem feels like it has been waiting for him, Jonathan arrived in Israel in a delicate and sensitive context. Jerusalem, as always, was full of contradictions, prayers interwoven with hurried footsteps, the sacred mingled with unending tension. And yet, strangely enough, on the day Jonathan arrived, the guide recalls, the air that day was strange. Not hot, not cold, not noisy, not heavy.
I think someone just came in.
It was like the city was holding its breath, waiting for something.
When we broke the bread,
Jonathan stepped out of the vehicle. He didn't say much. He stood still for a few seconds, watching the sunlight rest on the golden stones of the old city, then said a sentence that left everyone silent. "I used to play Jesus.
This is my
But right now,
body.
I feel like he's looking back at me."
Plays in a body.
This was not a line from a method actor setting the
We
mood.
thought he was simply rehearsing.
It was the confession of a man touching something beyond reason. The upper room. The moment Jonathan felt someone standing next to him, the first place Jonathan visited was the upper room where Jesus instituted the Eucharist and washed the disciples' feet. The space is much smaller than you'd imagine. Curved arches, light filtering through narrow windows, the smell of ancient stone mingled with the breath of thousands of years of history. Jonathan stepped in, stood alone in a corner of the room, his hand gently touching the time-worn wall. Their guide recalls, "We thought he was just getting into character for a season 6 scene." But then Jonathan turned around and asked, "Did someone just walk into the room?" There was no one. Later, Jonathan would say, "For a few seconds I felt like I wasn't just in this room, but I was inside that very moment, the moment he broke the bread and said, 'This is my body.' I literally started trembling.
Performing sorrow.
No special lighting, no strange sounds, no camera tricks. Just a spiritual experience, a moment. When the man playing Jesus touched the memory of the very place where he once stood.
I am not replaying
The Garden of
scene.
Gethsemane,
I am sharing
where
the sour
Jonathan could
taste
not
of
hold
that
back his
solitude.
tears. This was the moment that stunned the entire documentary crew. The Garden of Gethsemane at night is incredibly quiet, quiet enough that you can hear the slightest rustle of leaves.
Convinced me.
Jonathan walked among the ancient olive trees, some of which have existed since the time of Jesus himself.
Scripted tears with the kind
One
that
crew
arrive
member
when
said
the soul
he didn't say a
truly
word
feels
for about
accompanied.
15 minutes. He just walked, just touched the bark. And then suddenly, he started crying. Not crying from being moved. Not the kind of crying actors can summon on command. But the crying of someone carrying a weight heavier than himself. Jonathan said, I felt like I was sharing his loneliness. Not performing it, really sharing it. An actor can learn emotions, but no one can act the deep sense of abandonment that comes from standing where that man once knelt and prayed, Father. If it is possible, let this cup pass from me. In that moment, Jonathan was no longer reenacting the suffering, he was touching it. Via Dolorosa, the road he walked where his feet felt twice as heavy. On the third day, Jonathan walked the Via Dolorosa, the way of suffering, where Jesus carried his cross. The road is steep, paved with ancient stones, winding through Arab markets, both noisy and sacred at once.
The commentary suggests
Jonathan
that
walked in
sometimes the
silence.
heaviest crosses
No
are
filming,
invisible,
no
carried
acting,
in the quiet
no
of the
staging.
heart.
But he later shared,
Stone on that road
there were segments where my
felt like
feet
it
felt
remembered a
so heavy
story
I could hardly
we'll never
move.
forget.
Not physically. It was like a spiritual weight pressing down on every step. A crew member said, we thought maybe his foot hurt or something. But then we saw him drop to his knees and press his forehead to the ground. That moment was not in any plan. No one had expected it. No one had scripted it. Jonathan said, I felt like I was walking between two worlds. One world was Jonathan the man, and one world was the memory of the one I'm trying to understand. Asur,
The central figure of the story.
the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The moment he couldn't bring himself to touch the stone,
Being chosen for
here Jonathan stood before the stone of anointing and the empty tomb. The shooting coordinator recalls, we needed a shot of Jonathan reaching out to touch the stone. But he couldn't raise his hand.
Some
Jonathan
thresholds
admitted.
are crossed with silence.
It was the first time in my life that my hands felt unworthy.
In that moment,
I've played Jesus hundreds of times in front of the
he is
camera,
first a pilgrim.
but in that moment,
an actor.
I was just a sinner, standing before a mystery.
The day I learned
Some people are great
humility,
actors.
not
Some
skill,
people have strong
is the
faith.
truest preparation.
But very few experience the intersection of those two things to the point that they literally cannot move.
But because of
When the role chooses the actor and the Holy Land confirms it, Jonathan once shared, I never thought I was worthy to play Jesus. But the more time I spent in the Holy Land, the more I understood I wasn't chosen because I was worthy. I was chosen because I was willing. That was the turning point. This was no longer a journey of character study. No longer a promotional trip, no longer spiritual tourism. It became a meeting between a man and a sacred reality. A meeting that turned Jonathan, though an actor, into a pilgrim, a seeker, and someone being led rather than leading. End of chapter 1. The call from the ancient land. As he left Jerusalem to prepare for season 6, Jonathan said, I'm not bringing the Holy Land with me. The Holy Land is bringing me. This journey did not make him become Jesus. It made him a witness, a man who has been allowed to touch a tiny glimpse of something small in measure,
The land did not teach him
but big
how to
enough to
act,
change a lifetime.
only how.
This is the foundation for season 6, to become not just another season of storytelling, but a work that touches the spiritual depths beneath the narrative. And this is only chapter 1, when role and faith become one. When a role becomes an invitation into the sacred, some actors inhabit a role through
There were
technique,
countless
some
angles
through
for the
emotion.
light, yet it chose
But Jonathan
that
Roumie
exact
inhabits his role through faith. For him, Jesus is not a historical figure to be researched, nor a religious character to be transformed into. He is the one Jonathan seeks, the one he prays to, and in a sense, the one who has gone before him to open the way. The Holy Land didn't just change Jonathan's feelings. It revealed signs, signals that he describes as things that let me know I wasn't walking alone. Strange coincidences begin to appear. The documentary crew traveling with Jonathan says that throughout the trip, they witnessed many coincidences that were hard to explain. 1.
How
A coincidence of prayer. One morning in Capernaum, Jonathan sat alone by the Sea of Galilee. 2 minutes earlier, he had been praying with Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. The moment he closed the book, the sun suddenly broke through the clouds in a single beam, shining directly where he sat. A crew member recalls, there are hundreds of angles, thousands of possible shafts of light. But at the exact moment he finished the psalm, a single ray landed right on Jonathan.
Is that real?
Jonathan just smiled and whispered, I hear you. 2. A coincidence of weather. The day the crew went to Golgotha, the forecast called for rain.
It's not a miracle.
But at the very moment
It's a
Jonathan
reminder
stepped onto the hill of the
that
skull,
timing
the site believed to be the
often
place
carries
of execution.
In such
The clouds
brief
parted and
moments,
sunlight flooded the
a
area
heart
for
can say
exactly
more than in hours of
12
talk.
minutes. A local guide said, everyone here knows how unpredictable the weather is. But for sunshine to open up precisely for the time the crew needed, that's rare.
Sometimes grace comes in
12
measured
minutes, just enough for Jonathan to
Just
walk the
enough
area
for
and
one
finish praying.
humble prayer.
Then the sky closed again. Jonathan said, it's not a miracle, but it's a reminder that everything happens exactly as it needs to. 3. A coincidence of calling by the Jordan River. Jonathan stood where Jesus is believed to have been baptized. There was no plan to shoot anything specific, no pre-written reflection. The crew just wanted a quiet shot of Jonathan looking at the water. But unexpectedly, he said, I feel like someone just called my name.
I feel as though
No one heard anything but the water.
my name
Yet
has
Jonathan
just been
insisted, not loud, not clear, not like a human voice, more like something echoing inside me. A crew member later said, in that moment no one
Not a
dared to
human
ask
voice,
further.
but
It was
a
as if the
gentle
air
echo
itself had thickened.
arising from within.
These coincidences may be nothing more than feelings,
Sometimes
but for someone on a deep spiritual journey like Jonathan, they were signs small but meaningful. Reading the Gospels where the events actually happened. One of the most important parts of the trip was Jonathan reading the Gospels in the very places where the events took place. 1. The Sermon on the Mount. When written words become breath. Jonathan stood on the Mount of Beatitudes, where Jesus is believed to have preached the Beatitudes. A gentle wind, swaying grass, a strange stillness separating that place from the modern world. Jonathan opened the Gospel of Matthew and read,
Blessed are
the poor in spirit. A crew member said, his voice wasn't like when we film.
You were right, of
He wasn't
course,
in
about
character.
everything.
He wasn't
I find myself
performing.
reading your words daily,
It was like he was
searching
reading
for
a
the strength
personal
to carry
invitation
on
addressed to
alone.
him.
Reading those words.
Jonathan
where they
shared,
were
I
first
realized
spoken,
I wasn't just reading his
turns
words.
text into oxygen for his
I was
soul.
standing where those words were spoken for the first
Scripture
time.
feels less like history.
In that moment,
and
text
more like
became breath.
present tense invitation.
Words became reality. And Jonathan became a listener, not a performer. 2.
Forget the life I
The
built
Sea of
here.
Galilee, where Follow
How
Me
can I
still
forget
echoes
who I
through
am?
time at a certain spot on the
Blessed
Sea
are
of
those
Galilee,
who mourn,
where some scholars believe Jesus
they
called his
shall
first
be
disciples
comforted.
Jonathan, stood in absolute stillness. The cameraman said, we let the camera roll for 10 minutes. Jonathan didn't move. It was like he was really waiting for someone. Later, Jonathan shared, I asked myself, if he stood here, looked into Peter's eyes, and said,
A middle-aged
follow me,
African-American man
then today,
still becomes
who would he
less
look
upset
at? And if he looked at me,
classroom of the heart.
would I dare say yes? That's not a
He
question
stands
for an
where some
actor.
believe the first
That's a
disciples
question
once
for a
heard
man.
the words.
Unexpected
Follow me.
encounters with locals. An interesting part of the journey were the people Jonathan met, most of whom had no idea he was the actor from The Chosen.
I was imagining
One,
those eyes turning toward
The elderly Jewish man.
with the same
In a
simple
Jerusalem
invitation.
market, an old spice seller stared at Jonathan
If
for a
that
while
call
and
was
asked,
spoken
"Where are you
today,
from?"
would
"Your
I
eyes don't look
dare
like a tourist's."
to answer yes?
Jonathan smiled. "I'm just here to learn
This
about
is
this
no
place."
longer a question
The old
for a
man nodded.
character, but
Those who
for
seek
a
truth
real
never get
person.
lost. This land will show you the way.
Discipleship
Jonathan said,
begins wherever someone
That is one of the
stops,
sentences
pretending
that
they are
stayed with
only
me.
an observer
2.
of the story.
The Arab woman
The
on the Via
commentary
Dolorosa.
suggests that faith
This
often
woman didn't
starts
know who
with
Jonathan
one
was.
unsettling, beautiful
Yet as he passed
question
by,
that
she took his
refuses
hand
to
and said,
leave.
"Peace be upon you. This is the road of courageous hearts." Jonathan was moved to the point he had to turn his face away.
Sometimes
Simple
most
words from people he did not
important
know felt
scenes are
like
the
pieces
ones
of
that
guidance
look like
being
nothing
handed
is
to him.
happening.
No one can explain why such encounters happened precisely when Jonathan was struggling most deeply inside, and when art is overtaken by truth. For many actors, a role is temporary, but for Jonathan, stepping into the Holy Land removed the temporary mask.
So where are you from?
What remained was the role he must live, the faith shaping him, and the sacred bond between him and the character the world looks at. He said, "When we filmed The Chosen, I tried to understand him with my mind. But in the Holy Land, I started to understand him with my heart."
This land will
That
show
difference
you
reshapes Season 6.
Such simple,
A season Jonathan describes as the season where I'm no longer acting. I'm praying every scene.
He carries
The
that
moment he
sense
realized the
of
portrait of
blessing.
Jesus he plays had changed
Folded
forever.
quietly into his
Near the end of the journey, Jonathan was taken to a small chapel near Bethlehem. No crew, no fans, no lights. Just Jonathan alone in a stone room. He knelt and whispered, "I'm not asking to be a better actor. I'm asking to be a little more like
This
you."
encounter confirms
It was one of the
he is
few
not only
prayers he later
reading
shared
scripture,
publicly. A crew member said Jonathan walked out of that chapel as a different man. His eyes were deeper, his voice lower. It was like he'd laid down one burden and picked up another. That is the nature of a sacred role.
Please.
It is not something you simply perform, but something that changes you. When faith becomes an acting method, in cinema actors have many methods: method acting, Meisner technique, Stanislavski system, Brechtian approach. But Jonathan doesn't rely on any of those. His method is faith. It's the only way he can approach a character he describes as, "I can't play Jesus without letting Jesus touch me." The Holy Land trip wasn't prep work for a role. It was a work of opening his heart. A journey where the role and the man didn't simply blend, but entered a relationship.
Of the path ahead.
Jonathan did not become Jesus, but he became someone who listens more deeply, someone who prays more sincerely, someone who believes more strongly, and someone who acts from the heart rather than from technique. That is the essence of Chapter 2, when a role is no longer a job, but a vocation. Heart between a pilgrim and a legendary land. When an actor becomes a pilgrim. In the previous chapters, we saw Jonathan Roumie walk through the lands of Scripture like a seeker, searching for missing pieces for a calling for himself after years of embodying Jesus.
It is there that
But
you
in the
will
next
find your
phase
true
of this
strength.
journey, Jonathan doesn't just visit the Holy Land. He belongs to it, even if only for a few short days. This is no longer a research trip, no longer mere filming. It becomes a pilgrimage of the heart, where a man touches the wounds of history of humanity and of his own soul. The strange moment at the feeding of the 5,000, when silence speaks. On the fourth day, the crew took Jonathan to Tabgha, where tradition says Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes. There is a small stone courtyard, low wildflowers. Wind from the Sea of Galilee blows in, carrying the smell of salt and fresh grass. Jonathan stood there, looking at the place that witnessed one of history's most famous miracles.
The most powerful
And then something
confirmations
strange happened.
are often gentle
One,
enough to be missed
not that
by
the wind
inattentive.
stopped, but that sound stopped. A crew member recalls, "I was hearing waves, birds, tourists. And then, just for a moment, less than 10 seconds, everything disappeared. No wind, no footsteps, no camera sounds, no leaves. Only Jonathan standing still, eyes closed, lips moving as if speaking with someone. After that moment, he opened his eyes and said something that gave everyone chills. He told me, 'I'm still here.' No one asked anything more. No one tried to analyze. No one attempted to explain the vanishing of sound. Only silence remained and the shiver of those who were there. The conversation with an old monk. A warning for the man who bears the image of Christ. At a monastery near Tabga, Jonathan met an elderly Benedictine monk who had lived in seclusion for nearly 70 years. The monk looked at Jonathan for a long time and said, "I know you. Not because of the show. I know you because of your eyes." Jonathan was startled. "So what do you see in my eyes?" The monk smiled gently. "I see a man carrying a cross without knowing how heavy it really is." Jonathan fell silent. The monk continued, "You can act, but you cannot escape the eyes of humanity. Once they believe you're an image of him, you'll have to live in a way that doesn't betray that trust." Then he said a sentence that brought Jonathan to tears. "Let people see him through you, but never let them think you are him." That conversation stayed with Jonathan for the rest of the trip and through all the seasons that followed. The journey to the house of Mark. When scripture becomes reality. The crew went to St. Mark's Syriac Orthodox Church, traditionally considered the home of Mark and an early gathering place for believers. Jonathan walked into a small stone room, low ceiling, with soft yellow light from candles flickering along the walls. A young monk invited him to read from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 14. Jonathan opened the book and read. And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it.
It felt less like reading.
But as he reached that line, his voice suddenly caught. Not from emotion,
As it was taught
not from
in the
pressure,
beginning, so it remains
but
now.
because
We are merely
something in the
vessels
room
for this
had
eternal
changed.
wisdom.
The commentary
1.
suggests that
The air grew
sacraments become
heavier,
most
but not
vivid
frightening.
where people remember they
Jonathan
began
described,
small,
"I felt like the room shrank, even though no one
When
moved.
the moment passes,
Like someone
the
else had
chapel
joined
feels
us."
ordinary again,
He didn't stop.
though his
He
heart
continued
does not.
reading. "This is
Some
my body."
experiences do not
A crew
require
member
proof.
standing behind whispered,
They simply
"I'm not
ask
Catholic,
to
but
be
in that
cherished.
moment I felt like we were standing in the actual supper." That presence lingered for about a minute, then dissolved as if nothing had happened. The place where Peter wept. A meeting between human weakness and divine mercy. Jonathan very much wanted to visit one particular place, Peter's prison, where he is believed to have wept after denying Jesus 3 times.
And that I too
The room was
have
damp
days
and dark
without
with
enough
rough
courage.
stone walls. Nothing beautiful,
This is not
no iconic
me
imagery,
speaking as
just a
Jesus,
space of weakness
but as
and
a
regret.
fellow.
Jonathan walked in, placed his hand on the cold stone and murmured, "Peter, I understand you. I have my days of not being strong enough too." A crew member burst into tears hearing that,
Just as
because this
grace
wasn't
used an
Jesus the actor
imperfect
speaking.
fisherman.
It was a man acknowledging his own fragility. Jonathan sat down on the stone floor, closed his eyes, and prayed. "If you chose Peter despite his weakness, please use even my weakness." This was the first time Jonathan openly admitted that the weight of this role sometimes frightens him. But in the place where Peter broke down, Jonathan found peace. At Magdala, the most profound encounter of the trip, Magdala, hometown of Mary Magdalene, was one of the places that moved Jonathan most deeply. He once said, "Mary is the character who helps me understand Jesus' healing power more than anyone." As the crew stood on the floor of the ancient synagogue where Jesus is believed to have preached, Jonathan went unusually quiet. He looked down at the 2,000-year-old stones and said, "Mary walked on these stones. He stood here. The gospel began here." A guide asked, "What is it that moves you so much?" Jonathan answered, "Because this is the place where he saw value in someone the world had thrown away. And I believe he still sees value in those the world calls useless." Jonathan stood there for several minutes. No filming, no acting,
Listening,
words.
Perhaps.
Just standing as if listening to the voice of a woman healed 2,000 years ago.
That love often begins
The Dead
with
Sea,
seeing worth
when body and
in those
soul
the
touch the
world
boundary
sees.
of emptiness.
The same
At the
gaze
end of one day, the
mercy
crew
that
went to the
met
Dead
her
Sea, the saltiest body of water in the world, where nothing can sink. Jonathan stood at the shore watching the eerily still surface. A crew member asked, "Do you want to go in?"
For an elderly East Asian
Jonathan shook his head.
These stones sing of
Not
second
today.
chances, even
This
though
isn't a
they
place
make
for
no sense
experiment.
at all.
It's a place for contemplation.
In how healing
He bent
looks
down,
through
picked
the
up a
eyes
solid
of
block
the
of salt
one
and
I
said,
portray.
"This place is like our soul when it has lost hope, hard, heavy, and barren of life." Then he added a line that left everyone quiet. But God is never afraid of lifeless places. He comes precisely to bring them back to life. This became one of the deepest reflections of the whole trip and a key piece in shaping Jonathan's Jesus in season 6. And when the pilgrim's gaze changes, the story that was never filmed. One night the crew stayed in Nazareth. Jonathan couldn't sleep, so he went out for a walk alone. He passed narrow alleys, stone walls, and small wooden doors. A little boy about 8 years old ran past, then suddenly stopped and stared at Jonathan. He asked in Arabic, "Are you a teacher?" Jonathan smiled. "No, I'm just a tourist." The boy shook his head. "No, your eyes look like someone who knows how to teach people to love." Jonathan choked up. The boy ran off. No one knows who he was. The crew didn't capture that moment. No cameras, no lights, no script. Yet that moment changed Jonathan's gaze. After that night, his eyes on screen were no longer the eyes of a storyteller. They were the eyes of someone who has seen something deeper, gentler, more merciful. When a Land Becomes a Calling, Chapter 3, ends with a clear shift in Jonathan's soul. He's no longer an actor seeking inspiration, nor an artist chasing symbolism, nor an observer watching history. He has become a pilgrim, each step touching some sacred layer in the land, in history, in others, and in himself. This chapter is about the fall of the heart, when the Holy Land ceases to be the backdrop of Scripture and becomes the setting of his own soul. Every tear, every silence, every strange moment, every unexpected encounter, all lead to an unspoken conclusion: I came here to know him better. But in the end, he helped me know myself. A journey that leaves light in the heart. Jonathan Roumie's pilgrimage to the Holy Land was not a trip to collect pretty views, historical facts, or acting material. It went far beyond all of that. It became an inner turning point, a meeting between a fragile man and the land that witnessed the greatest love story in history. He arrived as an actor, but he left as a changed man. On the stone steps of Capernaum, the winds of Galilee, the darkness of Gethsemane, the echo inside the empty tomb, the strange hush over Tabgha, the gentle warning of an elderly monk. All of these formed a single invitation, an invitation for Jonathan to let go of fear and step into the road of truth, authenticity, and sacrifice that the role of Jesus demands.
Yet a young East Asian
This role is not just a job, it is a calling, a responsibility, a cross. And the Holy Land helped him understand that only those who carry the cross with humility can become an instrument of light. What makes this journey so mysterious and sacred is not the supernatural events, though there were many, and they're hard to ignore. It is the very human truth that Jonathan was afraid. Jonathan was exhausted. Jonathan wondered if he was worthy of the role. Jonathan crumbled more than once under the weight of the world's expectations. And it was precisely in those weak places that the Holy Land touched him the deepest. Just as Jesus has always chosen the weakest vessels to accomplish the greatest things. This journey restored to Jonathan the most important thing: a softened heart, humble and healed. From the eyes of a little boy in Nazareth to the odd stillness on the hillside of the loaves and fishes. From tears in Peter's prison to the deep emotion in Mark's house.
praying.
Jonathan understood that he is not just playing Jesus for an audience. He is letting Jesus live through him. That's why people who meet Jonathan in real life often say they feel warmth, peace, and love around him.
The commentary says
Not because he's the star of the chosen, but because when someone has truly touched the sacred, there is always something in their eyes that cannot be hidden. In the end, the greatest gift of this pilgrimage is not that Jonathan found God in the Holy Land. It is that he realized God was already there in every person he met, in every breeze, in every silence, in every tear, and in his own heart. That is the greatest gift of this journey. And it is the deepest legacy he will carry into Season 6, not as an actor, but as a witness.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.